Hi everybody, this is Steve Ludwig, host of Steve Ludwig's Classic Pop Culture and the Beatles Hour with Steve Ludwig at PlanetLudwig.com. Here's an interview we did with Paul Cowsill on October 14th, 2014, show number 62. To hear the entire show, check out the menu at PlanetLudwig.com. And now, please enjoy the interview. We are joined right now by a member of one of the most beloved, certainly one of the best music groups in popular music history. On October 24th, 25th, and 26th, he will be with his siblings Bob Cowsill and Susan Cowsill at the Chiller Theater Convention in Parsippany, New Jersey. Check out chillertheater.com for all the information. We have a lot to talk about. It is such a pleasure to welcome Mr. Paul Cowsill. Paul, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Steve. It is great to be here.
It's so great to be talking to you, really. We're going to talk about music and the Cowsills in a second, but what I'm really I love this about you is that, and hardcore Paul Cowsill fans know this, as I do, but the casual fans might not know that you play a very important part in the TV series Grimm, as you did the first Twilight movie. Could you tell us about that?
Yeah, I've been in the business for a while. I was down in Los Angeles and did a bunch of movies down there. Did a movie called Cabin Boy with Chris Elliott. And,
what a great movie.
David Letterman was in it. It's almost kind of like a cult movie.
It is a great movie.
Really great, but pretty horrible special effects and stuff like that. But and then the kids, I decided I was going to get out of it because it just takes your life away. Came up to Oregon and found a bunch of jobs doing stuff right by the farm. We bought a farm there, and then this production came to town. It was called Matinee. And, and I was ready to go back into that kind of business, and so I went up to the guy, the construction coordinator on the job, and I said, hey, I want to get back in the business and blah, blah, blah. And he goes, well, can you paint this hotel? And I went, yeah, I can paint this hotel. And that's how I got into it. And then my good friend comes up to me one day and he goes, hey, this movie Twilight, none of us knew what Twilight was going to be. It seemed kind of silly, actually, because we were always waiting for rain days so the vampire kids could play ball. And,
right, yeah.
To hear, I mean, it was so silly, and it's so funny, Steve. So I'm out on this ball field with these kids from Twilight, and we're waiting for the weather to get bad, and it does up here in the Northwest. And I call my brother Bob, and I go, Bob, you're not going to believe what I'm doing. He goes, what are you doing? I'm working as a greensman. He goes, well, what's a greensman? I go, well, it's kind of like a landscape architect. We build sets in the forest, and it's kind of a cool thing. I was told that it's a pretty easy job, and by my best friend, Steve, and it wasn't an easy job. But So I say to Bob, I go, but Bob, here we are. We're out in this big field waiting for the rain so these kids can play ball because they're vampires and they can't come out in the sun. And he goes, what are you talking about? Anyway, well, God, we know what happened to that movie. But I did greens on that movie. And so then Grimm came along, and I was working on a show called Leverage with Timothy Hutton that was shooting up here in the Northwest in Portland, to be specific. Mm-hmm. And then Grimm started up, and boy, I saw the greens on that, and I love being outside and all that kind of thing. So I jumped right over to that show and been on it since the first season. And we're doing our fourth season right now, and it should start airing, October. We're in October, so end of October, November.
Yeah, I'll tell you, Paul, with especially with Grimm, there's so many forest scenes and things like that. Really, you must be busy as heck on that show.
That it's a nonstop deal. We're 2 days out harvesting different kind of plants, different kind of trees that we need, for all of our location shots, and you can see how much they're in the woods. And so construction goes in and they build those cabins, and whatever these people are in out in the woods, the construction builds that, and then we bring huge trees in on the set, and we kind of just create, the woods. Sometimes, Steve, we're in a park. Sometimes we're in a park that has, a few big trees. And so we'll anchor on them, and we'll start building a forest right inside this park.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
A city park. So we like it when we're in the forest. It helps us out a lot more. But, it's been a great job. I mean, I love the job. It keeps you real healthy because you're constantly loading and unloading trucks of gigantic trees, and it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, well, now, Paul, I have to ask. I've seen you, maybe three times at BB King's in New York, and I know a few years ago you had knee surgery. And how does your knee hold
Yeah.
up with this kind of work that you do?
Well, it seems to be doing great. So I had that one knee surgery, and that was 3 years ago, and I went right back to work because, you can go through physical therapy and you can do all the work that needs to be done, but you really just need to get out and road test it. And you need to get your mind off of your knee and just do your job. And that's what I was able to do. And that knee just came back so great. The doctor was real happy. And, it was funny because you having seen me, I like to jump around. And, and so after I got that knee, Luann saw me in a couple of pictures jumping off some drum risers to end Rain the Park or to end Hair or something, And so we saw my doctor just, out in public one day, and she ran up to him and said, Dr. Hall, Paul's jumping off of drum risers, and, he's loading trucks, and he's doing all of this. And Dr. Hall looked at Luann and said, well, Luann, you only live once.
Oh, great answer from the
Yeah.
doctor. Sure.
Oh, it was perfect. So I was off the hook. Listen, Steve, I have to be careful. I'm going to be 63 in November, and these are supposed to be 30-year knees, and I'm good with all that. So I have to protect them a little bit. I might have a couple of more years in this greens world and stuff like that.
Like Grimm's going.
And
Sure.
hopefully the music thing can just kind of take over, which it seems to be doing right now. Since that dark movie came out, last night I'm sitting at my own house. I get home. I leave Portland on Friday nights and get home Friday nights to my house in Central Oregon. We have a nice farm there. And then I spend Saturday there, and then I come back Sunday until April that happens. And so it's a pretty grueling schedule, that's for sure. But,
I was going to say, how often do you guys, as the Cowsills, perform? I see you around a lot, boy.
It's every weekend practically now. I'm telling you, 5 years ago, it was maybe 4-5 times a year. We were struggling. People weren't putting the name together with the music, because we all had our kids, and we all kind of went on the down low, so to speak, and just, we recorded all those years, and we would do pop-up concerts, but we weren't on the road per se. And about 10 years ago, we were approached by somebody. We went, oh, yeah. Well, it was kind of a struggle at the beginning, and these guys all thought they were going to just book the heck out of the Cowsills, and it was all going to go groovy, and it was hard to do, and we kind of knew it was going to be hard to do. So, but then the movie comes out, and, and we had been doing well. When we played, we were the best. We are a darn good band, I must say.
Oh, Paul.
If we weren't able to sing and play and do what we do, we wouldn't get away with nearly the shenanigans that we pull and all the stories and the jokes and the and stopping songs in the middle of them. The other night, some guy was like saying he thought it was just me, Bob, and Susan playing, in Bath, Maine, I think, and some guy in the audience after we did, I don't know, some We Can Fly or something. He goes, yeah, well, you guys are sampling, or where are all these other voices coming from? And so, man, we look at the guy and we go, dude, this is it.
Yeah.
This is what happens when three sibling vocals are so tight, you start getting 4 and 5 more voices off of when those harmonies collide. They collide and they explode into a
I have to tell you, in addition to your hits, you guys, when you do the version of "Helplessly Hoping," the Crosby, Stills and Nash song, you talk about harmony. I get chills just thinking about it right now. You guys, if it's possible, you're even better harmonizing now than back in the '60s, if that makes any sense to you. But I think you guys have just. It's almost like a reflex thing with you guys. You just know how to fall into place. Do you find that?
I tell you, and we agree with you, Steve, that we think we're singing better now than we ever have. And none of these songs, all the keys are the same keys, even when we were little. I listened to old concerts of us and stuff like that. Look at the records were always, spot on. Well, that's easy to do because you spend hours and hours making that happen. But out on the road, the stage act, can you reproduce these records? I mean, that's really what people are looking for. They're not looking for you to come up and do your song, in any other way than what they bought their record and they wanted to hear it back in the day. And, we were pretty good at that. But when I hear old stuff, I'm going, oh, yeah, well, maybe not so great. But, it was pretty good for a bunch of little kids. But in this day and age right now, we are singing our butts off. And man, thank God for it. I don't know why it's happening, but we are singing better than ever. Bob's singing better than ever because, he had been working at a pub for like 25 years, 60 songs a night, every Friday, and then he packed the rest of the week with the same kind of venue, but he put his kids through college. I mean, he's done a lot with that work, but he had to quit that. He was dying out there, his hands all messed up from going from chord to chord and doing those long sets. So he's really grateful that, the concerts have been picking up and we're doing a lot of shows, and we play with a lot of people, but we also play alone and we can handle our own show alone now,
right. Yeah.
Which is interesting. And that gets back to that movie because that movie is out. Last night I'm watching a show because I like to stay up and just enjoy my time at home awake instead of sleeping. And so I was late at night watching TV. And I went to what did I go to? Showtime or something,
Showtime.
Movie channel. And, yeah, Showtime. And the movie was on last night at like 1:30.
We're talking about the Family Band, of course.
Yes, the Family Band, the Cowsill story. Yeah, it's a documentary film that came out almost 2 years. In April, it will have been out 2 years. And it's playing 9 times in November. And it's playing 9 times in October. It keeps playing and playing and playing.
I bought the DVD, Paul, and the extras on there, the extra interviews. I mean, every time I watch
the bonus DVD,
every time I watch that, I can't help it, Paul. My eyes tear up. It's such a bittersweet story. There's ups, there's downs. I don't have to tell you about your family history, but there's ups, there's downs. But I see it as a story of redemption and. You guys made it through all this. That's how I look at it. It's an uplifting story.
It is an uplifting story because you know what? I mean, just last weekend, and it's so funny that, it's like now that we've been playing a lot, all this past week that went by, Monday through Friday, I'm going, wow, when am I seeing those guys again? And I'm seeing them next weekend at the Chili Deal, right? So, what were we saying?
I was saying how it's a bittersweet, melancholy look at the history of the Cowsills.
Yes.
But in essence, it's an uplifting story that through all the stuff, you guys live to tell the tale.
Because, Steve, we were talking last weekend, and the thing is that if all that stuff, all the gullies, all the down parts of our life, if that wouldn't happen, then we are so close. I mean, Susan, Bob, John, myself, and Barry and Bill and Richard, I mean, all of us siblings, I mean, we're down a few now, of course, but all of us siblings were always closer than normal siblings. I mean, there's big families of kids and stuff, but I would be hard-pressed to find a set of kids that were any closer than we are. And me, Bob, and Susan, and John, I mean, we are desperately close. And then me, Bob, and Susan, because we don't see John a lot,
right?
Because he's playing with the Beach Boys and stuff. So me, Bob, and Susan, we are seeing each other all the time, and we are closer and closer. It's just like it feels so automatic, even to just being with each other. I mean, the singing thing, yeah, that is automatic. I mean, it took some gearing up because, the first time YouTube came out with us live, I'm on keyboards, okay, and we're not sounding good. And I'm looking at these films, and I'm like studying them like Peyton Manning studies a football game. And I'm realizing that this keyboard thing is dogging me because I'm swooping up to my harmonies late. And I'm so busy with all the patching that these new synthesizers had on them that it was dogging the heck out of me. And Stephen, it would be funny. We'd finish a show and people would come up and go, "Wow, that was a great show." And I didn't even remember the show. I mean, because I couldn't look up for a half a second, and Bob would be starting a song, and I'm still patching in. Right. And boy, as soon as I shed it, and so I felt that the vocal issue was my problem. And so I got rid of the keyboard, telling Ryan, my brother Bob's son, who's been doing a great job for us for many years now, to take over these keyboards and let me just sing and have some fun at this time of my life. You know, I'm not a genius like Bob and Susan and John and Bill and
Oh,
Barry. Oh
come
my
on,
God.
Paul.
No, I'm serious. I have to work like crazy to make it happen, which is like playing the instrument and singing at the same time.
Hmm.
Man, that is a very hard thing to do. Now, my brothers and my sister can do that just like that, but I have to really work hard. So I would rehearse every day of my life. I mean, even as kids, we had to do it 3 hours a day. Well, boy, I never stopped it because it took that kind of work and dedication for me to be able to go up on stage and do both of those things at the same time.
Well, Paul, you're in good company, Paul, because B.B. King, he can't play and sing at the same time. If you ever notice, when he sings, he stops playing the guitar, then he does his guitar riffs, then he sings. So,
I didn't
you're in
know
good
that.
company.
I
Yes.
didn't know that. And anyway, I wanted to start opening my mouth and start saying things that have been on my mind. And also, I just want to jump around and sing. I mean, I don't need people. I play bass. I mean, I was one of the best bass players in the 1970s, actually. I mean, I would rock the bass, and then we needed a keyboard player. And so then I went to keyboards. I'm kind of like that, you know, in basketball, I'm the sixth man. I'm the guy that will come in and just sub everybody out. So whatever
Well,
we need, I've always done that. And so, and it's
yeah.
been just a joy to do it with the direction of my brother Bob.
Hmm.
Hey, without Bob, dude, I'm nothing.
Oh, well, that's sweet of you to
No,
say, but I think you're
no,
selling
that's the
yourself short,
downright
Paul.
truth, brother. I lived it. Without that cat,
Okay.
it would have never happened for me. I mean, I was deaf from the time I was born till probably 5 or 6 years old. I couldn't hear a bloody
Literally?
thing. Yeah, because I had three sets of adenoids growing
Oh
in
my
my head.
goodness.
And in 51 and 52 and 53, they weren't looking for adenoids or anything, you know. So I spent
Sure.
I spent a stint in the Boston Children's Hospital, and then they finally cleared it up by about 6. You know, I was a mess.
Now, this is a silly question, Paul. Did it affect your speech at an early age?
Yeah, I would talk. You know, I would talk like kids that are partially hearing, and
Yeah,
it
I
was,
would imagine.
and I had constant stuff running out of my nose. I mean, and my earaches were constant. You know,
Mhm.
and I just thought there were all these people in my head building stuff because I never really heard
Ah,
anything. And one day, I'm with my brothers down at the Jungle Gym at the Anchorage. You know, I'm probably 5 or 6, and all of a sudden, I must have been focused on something else because I always watched my brothers and I went wherever they went, and they must have taken off. And I was sitting there, and this is a story from my mother, obviously, and she said that we were coming up on you, Paul, and your dad was about ready to wring your neck. And I said, wait a minute, Bud, wait a minute. You know, I don't think he's hearing us. And they took me to the doctor, and the doctor said, you have a 6-year-old lip reader here.
oh my! Oh
And
gosh, what a start to your
yeah,
childhood. Wow.
yeah, it was crazy. So yeah, so it took me a while. I went to kindergarten and first grade, and then kindergarten and first grade, but I caught up. I caught
Hmm.
up with everything, and now you know I'm singing better than ever. I'm singing
How
better than I've
ironic!
ever
Yeah,
sang before.
the way you started out, and
It,
now you have one of the most beautiful harmonic voices in the business. You know,
I
it's
am
funny,
a
Paul.
lucky guy.
Well, you mentioned basketball. That brings me to a mutual friend of ours, Ira Wolf.
Oh my God, I
He
love Ira. He was
uh,
my hero.
Yeah, I don't know if you want to tell our listeners briefly how you know Ira. I taught with Ira. That's how I know Ira in North Bergen. But you
Yeah, so and
guys,
that's
yeah.
our first visit. It was North Bergen. It was Barry and John and Bill and Bob. It was just a foursome. They were the Beatles. They were wearing Beatle boots, and we went over to North Bergen because Ira was friends with a gentleman named Richard Horn. We called him Biggie. He was our road manager for a long time, but also Mel DiGiacomo and all these guys that were up and coming young men out of college, you know, working at ABC and NBC, and Ira was friends with all these guys, and then you know Ira wanted us to play at the high school at North Bergen, and boy, we started playing North Bergen High, and boy, it went on for a lot of years in the early '60s, you know, before the band was successful in any way, shape, or form. They didn't even have the right personnel to make that band successful. But boy,
Yeah, well,
North Bergen was rocking and rolling,
Ira told
and
me,
Ira,
Paul. Yeah, go ahead.
yes.
I want to tell you something that Ira said, but I shouldn't have stepped on your lines. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Well, I
Finish.
wanted to just mention that my whole love about Ira, because I wasn't in the band, I was moving gear. I was not interested in being in the band. I was like 14 years old, 15, and Ira was he was like the football coach or the trainer of the football team, and then the track coach. So Ira used to take me all the time, and if you saw the movie, it was a pleasure to get out of that house. If there was somebody willing to take you for any kind of time away from that house and those parents, man, and Ira was that guy, Ira and Biggie, and they both lived over there in North Bergen in Jersey, and Biggie had gone to Rutgers. I forget where Ira went, but, and so these guys were sports guys, and so they immediately fell in love with me, even though I wasn't in the band, because I was this crazed out sports guy, and I was really good.
Ira said you were one of the best basketball players he's ever seen. They had to drag you out of the gym because you were a real gym rat. He said you were a great basketball player. The North Bergen basketball coach was hoping you lived in North Bergen. He wanted you to play for the team, for the Bruins.
It was crazy. So that's who I was until I wasn't. Until I realized that wasn't what it was going to be. And
here's a funny story. Ira wanted to know if you remember telling him. This is what you told him. There was a period of time when you guys went to like the Fame School in New York, a professional school.
Yes,
and Ira said that you told him that you were told when you guys were playing sports, don't throw the ball at the hands of the piano players because you could injure their hands. Don't throw at the legs of the dancers because they have to dance. And you said there was nobody to play with.
There wasn't. Hey, it was called the New York Children. I remember that, telling Ira that because when I was in New York going to school with Mary John and Susan at the New York Children's Professional School, like on 63rd and 12th, I'm thinking, it was down there, just down from Power Memorial, where Lou Alcindor was playing basketball. Wow. And I would stop into that gym and watch this guy play. We were kids. And so then the New York Children's Professional School decided, hey, we need to get a basketball team together. And I was all about that because we were going to get to practice at Power Memorial. That was the only reason I was really interested in it, because there was nobody to play. And that was the coach, because I was coming out of the Fifth Ward. I mean, I was angry even, and man, I was ready to pound some bodies, and if it was basketball and not football, so be it. And I remember just complaining about, man, these guys are holding me back. They're holding me back. And it was over by then, though, Steve, and I couldn't let it go, and Ira kept it going for me. But, Steve, I got to tell you, I used to go with Ira to watch him throw the hammer. I mean, he would practice the hammer all the time, and I always went with him, and he would throw that hammer over and over and over again.
Yeah. Well, he was. I'll tell you. I don't have to tell you this, but he loves you guys. He loves the Cowsills. I played football for North Bergen when Ira was the trainer, Paul, and we used to be in the training room. He used to tape our ankles, and he always used to play the Cowsills in Concert album. And and everybody used to hang out in the training room. And if the guys started talking too loud, I would say, "Hey, shut up! The Cowsills are on." If it were another album, we could talk as loud as we wanted to, but we could never overtalk the Cowsills. We couldn't drown you guys out. That's how much he loved you guys.
Oh, my God. We loved Ira with all of our hearts and soul. We still love Ira with all. Hey, he went to B.B. King's our last time at B.B. King's a couple of years ago, and I jumped off the drum riser, and he about wringed my neck. He came down into that dressing room and told me, you can't be doing that. And the thing that Ira didn't know is that, man, they aren't doing these knees like they used to. There's no pins. There's no needles. Man, they drill a hole in your femur and in your ulnar, and they drive this peg in there with bone glue. And I'm a carpenter. And, man, glue, you're going to have a break in your leg anywhere but where it's glued.
You know what else is great, Paul? We were mentioning how you guys are doing more and more shows. I'm so happy to hear you guys are going to be part of the Happy Together 2015 tour with Flo and Eddie and the Turtles.
Oh, my God, Steve. We are so happy and so excited about that. Look, it's got its drawbacks. One drawback is that it's just going to be me, Bob, and Susan. I mean, a whole big percentage of us loves that because we just love being together. We were going to miss our band. They have the it's a backup band, in other words, for all the performers. This is a cavalcade of stars. This is Dick Clark's road show. It's the Happy Together road show. It's the Grassroots, the Association, the Buckinghams, Mark Lindsay, Flo and Eddie, and
Mark
ourselves.
Yeah, the Cowsills though. I can't wait to see you guys. But that's going to be a great tour. But like you said, you're going to be away from the rest of your usual Cowsill band.
Yeah, but you
It's
know
a
what? We
family
need to
affair,
do
isn't it,
this.
Paul? Yeah, it's a family affair. The Cowsill band. Your son's in it, I believe, as well.
Yeah, so Brendan plays guitar and Bob. So I was talking. We had Ryan in the band before Brendan, and Ryan was covering my keyboard stuff because me and Ryan played the same kind of keyboards. And so then we were needing a guitar player, and we needed a guitar player to round this band out. And so Bob goes, well, the only guy I can think of, and I'm thinking I'm going to hear some like Waddy Wachtel or some giganto name, right? And all of a sudden I go, well, who? And he goes, Brendan. I go, Brendan who? He goes, your Brendan. I go, my Brendan. And because see, Brendan plays guitar, unlike all of the cousins and kids from all of us. Brendan really plays guitar and sings the same way we do. I mean, he can actually double parts for me up on stage, which he does, and he adds a great vocal to our stack that only he seems to be able to do. He just is in our register, and his guitar playing, he plays just like Bob. And Bob says to me, it's funny because Brendan, he was a professional baseball player, and he's a big kid. But Bob says it's funny because he plays with such a soft wrist. And I go, well, is that good or bad? He goes, oh, no, it's good. It's just you don't expect it out of such a huge guy to, come off nice like that. So, yeah, so it is still a family band. It's a hoot. And Russ, who is our drummer, and has been our drummer for 10 years. I mean, we love Russ, and that's Susan's husband.
I had Russ on the show with Susan months ago. It seems like your
well,
brother-in-law
cool.
seems like a great guy, Paul. Your brother-in-law seems like a great guy.
Listen, Rusty is, well, and I think I can say this. I'm not saying anything out of school here. Rusty's the best frickin' thing that happened to my sister, Susan. Well, she'll tell you the same thing. But I'm telling you, it's bona fide. And he is the sweetest guy you're ever going to meet. And, and if he's ever aggressive, it's passive aggressive. That's not a good thing, but no. Russ he's a sweetie. We love Russ with all our heart. And I'm going to tell you something. That little guy, he can drum the heck out of stuff. He is just the best drummer. And he adds like Brother John, when he's with us, and when he used to be with us, he was a great drummer. And John is a great drummer. But Russ has this New Orleans thing that he brings with him, and it's kind of just inbred in him. And so we get a different flair from Russ as we would get from John. Both great drummers, but we love Russ. We love Russ, and he's our drummer.
If I'm out of line, forgive me, but may I ask you, what did your son Brendan think of the family band when he watched it? Did he share with you, like, oh, God, Dad, I can't believe you went through that stuff? He probably knew. But
you know what? So we have a screening at the Paley Center in L.A. That's the first time that it was ever shown. Okay? Everybody's there. All the kids are there. All the grandkids are there. And I say that now. Because at the end of it, there was a question and an answer. Or would you like to make a comment? And at the end of it, Brendan stood up and basically was kind of saying about his grandfather and what a great human being he was, and how much he loved them, the grandkids, and how much all the grandkids loved him. So that's what Brendan had to say.
Yeah.
Go
ahead, yes.
Oh, I was just going to say, when Brendan and Shane, my oldest son, when they were like getting right into junior high school, all of a sudden, I had never talked to them about the band. Man, I was hunkering in. The band had happened, and it was just kind of something that wasn't needed to be discussed with my kids at that time. I just didn't feel like they needed to be thinking about all that stuff, It was all good at my house. I didn't do anything. I learned from my parents exactly what not to do, But one day, man, the kids came back from junior high, and they said, hey, Dad, man, we're getting all this stuff. Now, what the heck is happening? Who the heck is this? And why are these people knowing they know me? Why does that teacher know me? Why does the janitor guy know me? I said, and so I went into my room, and I got all the records, and I put all the records down. And it had been some years since those records, because the kids were now like 13 and 14. And I put the records down. I said, well, here's the story right here, and we talked a little bit about the story. And Shani, my oldest, goes, well, so what's the big mystery? I go, no mystery, Shane. It's just that we're having such a fun time in life. And honestly, when you look at all of these records here and you see all these smiley people, there's not too many people smiling right now about all that. And honestly, at the time, and we're talking early, mid-70s, we're talking 70s into the early 80s.
Right.
The people were going through their issues. My family, my brothers, my sisters, my everything. And so I just didn't. It was just an interference, in my opinion. It was just going to be another thing I was going to have to explain. When it really didn't need explaining just yet. It would come in its own time.
Yeah, when the time came, exactly.
Yeah, and honestly, the kids were drumming and taking piano lessons. I mean, we were doing music. They just didn't know the length, how big this band was at a certain time of a certain moment of a certain moment.
Boy, were you guys huge! You guys were huge people.
Yeah, it was a hoot. It was a hoot. Now, some of my brothers, they don't think it was a hoot. I think it's a hoot. I had the best time. I'm telling you, I'm all about having fun. Look, we had to pay the fiddler, and that was Dad. But, he never cut into my fun or my happiness in life. He never made me sad. That was the last thing I was going to let that guy do. That would really make him win. He can hit you all you want. That's whatever. But man, if you give in and you become the person he's trying to get you to be, which, man, I wasn't becoming that guy, and it always dogged him. He always would look at me and go, dude, why are you smiling?
More power to you, Paul, for your strength in that. I don't know if I could be I don't know if I could have been as strong as you. God bless you for it.
Steve, I got to tell you something. Me and Susan Claire, that's my sister, me and Susan, we decided a long time ago, because my dad moved to Mexico. He called me one day and he goes, hey, I'm thinking of moving to Portugal and Mexico. I go, well, what's your attraction to Mexico? Well, maybe I'll get to see my grandkids. And so right then and there, I said, Dad, you move to Mexico. You let me know where you are. I'll get my kids down to see you. I'm not an ogre here. I'm not going to take people away from my kids just because, I think they're assholes. Or whatever. And and then Susan started going down with me, and this was our thing. And me and her decided to forgive this guy, to move on with our lives, and to, get our stuff together. Because, if you're all worried about something that happened in the past, or worried about a certain human being and what they did to you, you're not taking care of your own business.
Well put. Yeah.
Yeah. And so we were into taking care of our own business. And that's what we did. And so Dad and the grandkids, they grew to love each other and know each other. And that's cool. He really never had much time for us, even as old people. My dad. They were guilty. They felt guilty. I know this is what it was. My old man, he picked some place down in the middle of Baja to live in Mulahay, on the Cia Cortez side of Baja, way, way down. I mean, you're not just going to go, this isn't a Sunday trip to go see Grandpa.
Sure.
And so he was escaping, and my mother dies at 52 from emphysema when she could have stopped smoking cigarettes and lived a long life and seen Brendan get drafted by the Angels in high school. I mean, being the baseball freak she was. So, they all had guilt issues going.
Yeah. Well, Paul, before I say goodbye, I have one more question for you. I think a lot of people think if you someone like you is in the music business, everybody in the music business. Of course, that's not so. But did you know or ever meet Paul Revere of Paul Revere and the Raiders?
Well, yeah, because we met him as little kids. But about 5 or 6 years ago, Paul. We were playing in Branson, Missouri. The band was, the Cowsills. And Paul was playing there at the Andy Williams Theater, okay? And so Paul came to our show in Branson. It might be 7 years now. I don't recall how long ago it was. He came to that show, and he told us he just fell in love with us that day, and he became our champion. And he is the one guy out there that would tell people, well, if you want to hire me, you got to hire the Cowsills. And I have heard since he passed away, I've heard from the promoters and buyers of people that have been on my Facebook or emailed me saying, because I did say, I thank Paul, for championing and loving us, and we loved him. And people called me and said, yeah, that cruise that you guys were on with Paul, yeah, we weren't going to hire you, but Paul demanded that you guys get hired, and it was the best thing that we ever did.
How great is that? Wow.
Yes, and so he was our true champion, and Susan, in fact, is in Boise, Idaho, right now at the memorial. You know, Jamie, his son, is our dear friend,
Mm-hmm.
and and the whole Raider band is our dear friend. No, we all traveled and we've been
Oh, that's so
touring
nice to
together for the
hear.
last 5 years. Yeah, so Paul is a big miss. You know, Rock and Roll Heaven's getting a good one when they get Paul Revere.
Yeah.
He's going to bring laughter and he's going to bring funny to all those cats up there.
That's nice to hear. Well, Paul, I cannot thank you enough. It's such a, I mean, you're such a great presence on stage, and it's always to me to speak to some. I'm a child of the '60s. I just turned 60, so I grew up at the
Oh,
Cowsills,
good.
and to know
Cool.
someone who you've admired is such a great guy in real life is extra special, and that's what you are. And I want to thank you so much for coming on the show. It's a pleasure. I'm going to meet you at Chiller. I'm in the area, so I want to meet you
Okay.
in person. You and your
Well,
siblings.
you come by, man, but the first time you see Ira, you give him a big hug and a kiss for me and tell him Paul said, my knees are just rocking. They're
I
doing
will. I'll
great.
be glad to hear it.
Okay.
All
All
right,
right.
Paul. Thank you so much. It's been great talking to you, Paul.
Steve, man, thank you for giving me the opportunity to come on your show, man. I love it.
My pleasure. Thanks, Paul.
Okay. Bye.